We're back at it again with the Metal Gear Solid 2 review. On today's episode, on today's part 2, we're going to be going over mostly the gameplay within the plant chapter. Now, I won't be spoiling anything major with the story. In fact, I'm going to avoid talking about characters or plot points in general. However, I will be showing some boss fights and gameplay scenarios, so if you consider those spoilers, and honestly, if you haven't played Metal Gear Solid 2, get off of this video and go play it right now, then come back here. Alright, you're gone? Alright, excellent. Let's get right on into it.
残酷な天使のように少年よ神話になれ青い風が今胸のドアを叩いても私だけをただ見つめて微笑んでるあなたそっとくれるもの求めることに夢中で運命さえまだ知らない痛いけな瞳だけどいつか気づくでしょうその背中には遥か未来目指すための羽があること残酷な天使の手で窓辺からやがて飛び立つほとばしる熱いパトスで思い出を裏切るならこの空を抱いて輝く少年よ神話になれ
So the plant chapter in Metal Gear Solid 2 starts off with you playing as a mysterious character called Snake, but you as a player have a very strong feeling that this isn't Snake. Anyways, you're told by Colonel Campbell to infiltrate the facility known as the Big Shell, which is an environmental cleanup facility that's cleaning up the mess from the tanker mission after Metal Gear completely destroyed it in the prologue chapter. Now, you're here because terrorists have taken it over and have kidnapped the president. As this new mysterious character, you must go into the Big Shell, infiltrate it, find the president, and rescue him and the other hostages. All of this while the player gets the creeping feeling that not everything is as it seems. But we can talk about that more later. Right now, we're going to focus on the gameplay. The starter area not only introduces you to the stealth mechanics that have been expanded upon from Metal Gear Solid 1, but introduces an idea unique to Metal Gear Solid 2, nodes. As Metal Gear Solid 2 is a fixed camera game, there are going to be times where you won't be able to see certain enemies as you would with a normal first or third person camera. Therefore, the series has what's called the Soliton radar. In the first game, you have this little radar in the corner of your screen at all times letting you know where the enemy is. In this game here, you need to unlock this radar by finding the node located in the room and activating it so you get that sixth sense. Think of it as a miniature Far Cry tower in the sense that you enter a room and you only unlock the map once you reach this node system. Same way that like in Far Cry 4 when AJ gets to a certain region in Kyrat, he only gets the map and the information that he needs if he gets to the tower. So this sets up a pretty early pattern of get into the room, scope the room out in first person, find the node, activate the node, then continue sneaking around. I think nodes are great for two reasons. One, they really encourage exploration, and two, they really help you get this sense of mastery over the Big Shell environment as you're sneaking around. Because if you don't activate these things as you play this game, you're going to be at a serious disadvantage and you're going to feel it. You're going to get caught a lot more, you're probably going to die a lot more. So this adds another layer to the stealth. Another way that it builds up of the legendary foundation set by Metal Gear Solid 1. And I feel like features like this were really missing in Snake Eater, where a lot of the environments were one and done scenarios. Anyways, after you make it through that initial starting area that introduces you to the differences in stealth as well as the nodes, the game gets extremely restrictive and you get told by the Colonel to head for Strut B. However, if you're a big dick thundercock Chad like myself, you'll realize that there's nothing stopping you from going to strut F, which is one of the most important places in the game. This would be a good time to mention that the way this game is set up is that you have different compartmentalized puzzle-based stealth sections called struts, which all are represented by different buildings on this plant in the middle of the ocean. And each of these struts are connected by different walkways that usually have their own stealth puzzles to go along with them. Anyways, strut F we're going to go over right now just because it's extremely important. Strut F is the skill tree of Metal Gear Solid 2, in the sense that it really marks the player's progression as the game goes onwards. For example, at the beginning, you'll try to go in there and try out all these different doors, and only one of them will really open, the one that'll provide you with the beginner trank pistol of the game. But it's not just the locked doors that make it very difficult for beginner players to get all the best weapons and then completely cheese the game. Strut F is one of the hardest stealth rooms to get past, and it's for these reasons. First off, the node is hidden in a very difficult to reach place, so odds are if you try to go for it right at the start, you're going to get caught, overwhelmed, and killed. Second, the guards are constantly checking in with each other. Even on easier difficulties, you're not just going to be able to take everyone out and do what you want. People will always be looking at Strut F because this is where the enemy soldiers keep all of their weapons. And it's not like the player can just avoid Strut F if they feel like it or don't want to face the challenge, because Strut F has mission mandatory weapons such as the PSG-1 sniper rifle, which becomes very important later for reasons that we'll talk about. But from the start, it's a good idea to go and at least familiarize yourself with Strut F, because you're going to be needing to go back and forth from there every time, and that's why I say this is like an interactive skill tree. Because just like how in other games like Far Cry again, when you make progress, you open up the skill tree and you unlock a new thing that allows you to, gives you another option in how to play or tackle certain objectives. Strut F works like that, except instead of just opening up a menu, you actually have to go in there with the new keycard that you have unlocked that'll grant you access to something that will allow you to tackle situations completely different than before. So you have to earn your power, which is awesome and part of the reason why I love Metal Gear Solid 2 so much. So even though Strut F can be a pain sometimes, I love its inclusion. Anyways, once you start going the way the game wants you to go, you're taken to the A-B connecting bridge that connects Strut A and Strut B, which will be talked about later. Here on this connecting bridge, you're introduced to the sense of different patrol patterns for different enemies, as well as the fact that the floor, depending on the type of surface it is, can make noise. Now this would normally be a tutorial for you to like leap over the ledge and sneak your way around. However, if you picked up the M9 earlier from Strut F, you can just bop one of the guys on the head and keep making your way along. This is a good time to talk about the M9. The M9 is part of your bread and butter setup that the tanker mission set for you, in the sense that you have your stealth gun and utility gun. The M9 is the stealth gun. It's permanently suppressed, handles well, has incredible range for a pistol, especially a trank pistol in this game, and it has low, what's the word I'm looking for? It has low consequence stealth potential. By low consequence, I mean that if you knock out a guy, it means that a guy that finds him will freak out a lot less and is more likely to be like, hey, wake up, you lazy bum, instead of being like, oh my god, this guy was shot dead. So the non-lethal part of it does have a couple of drawbacks in the sense that the M9 isn't going to serve you very well in combat scenarios. However, for stealth, this will more so often than not end up being your go-to weapon. After this, you'll enter Strut B, which is the big shell's power supply room. Here, you're going to be introduced to one of the wackier sides of Metal Gear Solid 2, a vampire that leaps out and kills everyone, which separates the tanker chapter from the plant chapter in the sense that the plant chapter is going to be a lot more unhinged and out there than more so of the grounded tone that you got before in the prologue chapter. Anyways, here the vampire shows up, kills a couple of guys, then you're introduced to this random character who totally isn't Snake. I don't know, some guy called Iroquois Pliskin who has in no way affected me, my personality, my life, or this channel. and you just talk with him about what's going on, the objective. He's a little suspicious, but what really matters here for the sake of gameplay is that he gives you the second part of your bread and butter setup. No, not the cigarettes. That's not really important for the sake of this video. What's important is the SOCOM, which is essentially just a really thick USP in 45. Now, whereas the tranq gun was your go-to for just clean, low consequence stealth, the SOCOM for the moment is your combat weapon, is your destruction weapon of cameras and other mechanical things that can't be damaged by the tranq gun. It's part of that bread and butter combo. Clean, quiet, M9. Loud, proud, or destructive, not necessarily loud or proud, but silent and destructive, the SOCOM. Well, as it's not really suppressed when you first get it, it really is going to be your loud and proud right at the beginning of the game before you get any of the other combat weapons. However, if you find the suppressor in Strut F, this becomes a god tier pistol in all gaming, if you ask me, because you get all the destructive power of the SOCOM, except now you can use it to quickly kill enemies that you normally wouldn't be able to reach really fast before they can call in reinforcements, and you can just kind of be a lot more ballsy in your playstyle. So SOCOM is awesome, and Pliskin's awesome for giving it to you. But yeah, anyways, after this, you and Pliskin meet a guy called Peter Stillman. That represents the game throwing its first real challenge at you now that you have your bread and butter set up. He tells you that one of the members of this crazy terrorist unit, Dead Cell, called Fat Man, has planted C4 all over the struts. This means that saving the president and the other hostages will have to wait as you and Pliskin do a mad dash to disable all the bombs before they blow up the entire station that you're on. Stillman gives you two tools in order to accomplish this. The first is Sensor A. Sensor A can sniff out the bombs on your Soliton radar. So if you've activated your nodes, it's going to be really easy to find the bombs as you go throughout the struts. The second thing he gives you is a freezing device, which, because Metal Gear Solid 2 is awesome, it isn't going to lock you into a boring minigame where you have to disarm the C4. Instead, when you find the bomb, you just need to take out this liquid nitrogen spray, spray the C4, temporarily disable it just so you and Pliskin can get on with the bigger mission at hand. This section is great because not only do these freeze the C4 puzzles build on the foundation of the Semtex puzzles from the tanker, but it also forces the player to become very familiar with each of the struts and their stealth puzzle. For example, while sneaking around Strut B, I had to be extra careful not to step on certain floors that would alert everyone in the area that there was a noise and probably someone nearby. Strut A returns, however, this time it's not just the guy between the cubicles you need to worry about. There's a whole nother room where you have all the pipe works, where all the water gets pumped or the filtration, something really technical to do with the big shell. Anyways, in this big room you have to crawl your way under pipes, avoiding guards that might see you, and a camera on the far side of the room. If you've already activated the nodes, that plus the sensor that Stillman gave you in order to detect the bombs will be a breeze. However, if you haven't activated the nodes, specifically in this room, that camera can really catch you off guard, as the sensor will still work, however the level geometry will remain almost completely a mystery to you. For many players, the C4 and Strut F will be their first reason to even go there, so this means many players will enter Strut F without the node, only the sensor to give them a vague direction, and without the node, it's going to be difficult even using the sensor, as there's quite a bit of parkour and platforming in order to get to the hidden spot where the bomb is. Now, while many of the strut connecting bridges are just a simple cipher and guard puzzle, meaning you'll have to use shaft grenades or one of your pistols to get by, the EF connecting bridge is tricky, as it's been laid out with invisible mines, as well as a guard up top that's listening for mines to go off and is using his binoculars to try to spot you. However, if you have your M9 already, taking him out should be pretty easy. This is one of those moments where the M9's range really comes into play. Now, there probably is a way to just, evade all of these mines. However, what I usually tend to do is just brute force it, put a ration on, blow up a couple of mines after taking the guard out so he doesn't call anyone to my location, blow a path for myself, take the damage, and then keep walking that path for the rest of the game. This brings us to Strut E, which is pretty challenging even on easier difficulties, but really useful if the player takes the time to understand it. Now, depending on the difficulty, there will either be 1 or 2 bombs on this strut, one in the box room and one up top. But before we talk about up top, let's talk about the box room. This is a heavily guarded area. However, if the player takes the time to collect all the different cardboard boxes, this area can be used as a fast travel point to get to other struts very quickly, as equipping the right box, which you can read through the description what matches with what's going on in the strut. For example, electrical appliances will probably send you to strut B, where they have their electrical transformers. So if you take the time to really get to know how these boxes work and how this room works, you can save yourself a lot of trouble and less risk in getting caught going across the bridges on your way to go to different struts. Now, up top on strut E is the heliport. When you first get up here, you'll be treated to that nice little vantage point that guy who placed the mines usually uses to spot you, so you can go ahead and use this time to get some sweet revenge on all the annoying trip mines you had to burn your way through to get here. After that, you get up top, and it's a generic kind of things are stacked up for you to hide behind. There's random large boxes, kind of hinting that this might be a boss arena. And then underneath the giant piece of foreshadowing for a boss fight later, you'll find one of the C4s. Another bridge shout out to the DE connecting bridge, because this really plays with the game's sense of verticality, as it may look like just a normal walkway where you can blow your way through the guard and keep going. However, on strut E, above on the heliport, a guard will look down at the bridge and will see you if you cross your way like using the top. So you'll have to go to the bottom and take out the guys there, which is heavily guarded. Like, you really have to make choices with this bridge. Should I risk going across the top, get there faster, or should I go through the more heavily guarded route so I don't get spotted from above? It's cool. It's almost like that bridge foreshadows strut D, because here it's all about verticality. You got 2 levels in a round room, guys on top, guys on bottom. You need to sneak around, keeping in mind that a good hiding spot might not be as good as you think, as someone from below or above can still spot you. This also introduces the fact that you can use the action button to open doors. I mean, not really introduces, because you've already been opening doors, lockers, all that kind of stuff. But here you have to open these little vent things to gain access to where the bomb is hiding. And it's awesome. You can also hide bodies by throwing them off into, it's not water, but it's like a chemical fluid where shit just sinks, which explains why you can't swim in it. But yeah, it's just a really cool room that differentiates itself from everything else by having that heavy aspect of verticality. And then I don't really have much to say about strut C. The bathrooms are great to hide in, the bomb puzzle's pretty chill. It's an easy place to sneak around, but it's amazing for getting Easter eggs. Now that you've familiarized yourself with all the struts and have taken care of all the bombs in them, Peter Stillman calls you back and says, hey, there's another really big bomb. It's gonna go off really soon. There's a sensor that I specially made because this one won't be detected by sensor A, so you need to use the new sensor B to use sound to locate the bomb. So in case you were getting bored of just being able to leisurely take your time and have to sniff out these bombs with sensor A, the game throws a curveball. So you have to run back to strut C, get this new sensor, and then on a time limit, figure out where this last bomb is and take it out. It's a rush, however, it fits perfectly with the pacing, as this would be the point where you're confident in your knowledge about all the different struts. So yeah, your mad dash with sensor B to find that final really big bomb that's gonna go off when a timer begins. However, now because you know your way around the struts, odds are the player's gonna be moving a lot faster, working their way through stealth puzzles, because you know what to do now with every strut and bridge that you go to. Upon reaching the final bomb within the starting area of the game, really nice how it all loops back like that, it's very intense because no longer do you have the security of being able to go as close as you want to the bomb. If you get too close, it'll blow up. So you have this nerve-wracking section where you have to just inch your way just to get close enough to spray this bomb down and shut it down, saving the big shell, at least for now. But there's no time to celebrate, because as soon as you're done doing this, guess what? It's boss fight time against one of the, I guess you could call them you know how Metal Gear has its squad of terrorists that end up being the boss fights? The first one is Fortune, a chick who can't be hit by bullets and who has a giant railgun. I don't have a lot to say about this boss fight, except it's a lot like Pyramid Head from Silent Hill 2, the first boss fight with him. Anyways, you just kind of sit there. And somewhere between just sitting there and avoiding getting shot the best that you can while an invisible timer goes by, the colonel calls you and says that Fat Man, the guy who's been putting the bombs all around, wants to have a final showdown with you. So you make your way to the Strut E heliport to go take him down. Like all of the boss fights in Metal Gear Solid 2, the Fat Man boss fight is quite gimmicky. He'll put bombs around and then you have to disable them while trying to get your damage in, while he'll, plant more bombs, maybe try to shoot you. It's not really all that much fun. The boss fights are a weakness with Metal Gear Solid 2, in case you didn't notice at my little jab at the fortune fight where you're literally just sitting there. Here at least you're running around and you have to use your knowledge of what you've been doing all this time to beat him. After you beat him, you have to disable one last bomb, and now I guess it's going back to the president, right? Wrong. At this point, a random ninja comes out and is prepared to tell you exactly what you have to do next, and that the president's position is unknown. However, there's a man on the big shell that knows where the president is. He's being held with the other hostages. However, it's not going to be as simple as just putting on a cardboard box and running in there. You got biometrics, security cameras, you're going to need a disguise, you're going to need an enemy AK, which means another trip to Strut F, and you're going to need a directional microphone. Why on earth would you need that? Well, no one knows what Ames looks like. All we know is that he has a pacemaker on his heart. So you need to disguise yourself with an enemy AK and a uniform that the ninja so graciously gives you, the uniform, not the AK. You need to go through the trouble of getting that. And then you need to go find this directional microphone within the Shell 1 core where these hostages are being held, and go around and try to figure out who this guy is so you can track down the president. So now that you're a complete ninja that knows the plant in and out of his head, you go through Strut F like nothing, you get yourself the AK. With your disguise, with your AK, you're ready to make your way into the center shell, Shell 1 core. As soon as you get to the Shell 1 core, that sense of familiarity that you've built up through the bomb puzzles and all the other struts goes away. This place is heavily guarded, has more cameras than anywhere else, has guards that look completely different, use different weapons, the layout is unfamiliar to you, so you go around in your disguise being careful not to bump into anyone, because if you do, the uniform falls off and then you're pretty much screwed. You make your way over to the elevator, and at that point there, you need to make it to B2, like basement 2, the computer level, in order to get the directional microphone. Here you have to navigate your way carefully, noting the enemy's pattern so you don't bump into them, activate your node, find the directional microphone, and then at that point there you can familiarize yourself with it and test it out on the parrot, like so.
You must be Ames. You must be Ames.
You must be Ames.
So after teaching the parrot some new tricks, you make your way to basement 1, where the hostages are being held. Before you can get to the hostages, however, you need to get past biometrics, which scans the enemy's eyes in order to open. So, you bide your time, wait for an enemy to come by, then at the perfect moment, you knock him out, use his eyes to scan through the door, and then you have access to the hostages. Now here you need to be extra careful, because if you're seen doing anything suspicious, I mean anything, crawling, jumping, vaulting, putting down your AK for a second, the hostages are executed. So you get into this really intense scenario where you have to tiptoe around, and then while the guard, who's constantly checking in by the way, is not looking, find Ames, point the pacemaker at him, and initiate contact with him. Once you initiate contact, he'll tell you to point your microphone towards one of the given rooms to get some super secret important information about the enemy's plan.
Come all the way to New York just to get hit with a bowel attack. What?
Ocelot will come out looking all suspicious, so you have to put your AK on really fast. Odds are, after such a long cutscene, the player is going to be off guard and just chilling out, so this is a great way to jolt them back into the action. Anyways, Ocelot ends up killing Ames and then discovers you, and almost kills you after you're found out as being an imposter, but the ninja saves you right in the nick of time. Now it's up to you to escape, and head towards the Shell 2 core where the president is being held. But of course, since you've made a decent amount of progress through the game, you take another trip to Strut F, pick up the PSG-1 sniper rifle, as well as whatever knickknacks you can find to help you on your journey. You remember the Semtex puzzles from the tanker mission? Well, now you're gonna have the mother of those Semtex puzzles. You need to make sure that you have not just your SOCOM, because your SOCOM can go through the majority of these puzzles. However, you also need the PSG-1 because Semtex is going to be placed on a cipher, behind a flag, way too far away to hit with the SOCOM, so you need to sit down, take your time, and earn your way to Shell 2. This is great because right about here you're starting to get to the halfway point of the game, and putting C4 puzzles or something like that you'd have to do here would be tiresome because you've already done so many. So Semtex puzzles add variety, but keep that same spirit of slowing down the pace of the game after all the craziness that happened in the Shell 1 core, so you have a little bit of time to think, use your guns, before going into the next set of plot twists and craziness. Don't get too comfortable though, because right after that little bit of rest, the craziness comes back with a vengeance. You're introduced to the game's antagonist, Solidus Snake, and you figure out that, wait a minute, you're mean to tell me that random Pliskin guy was actually Solid Snake all along? Damn, never saw that one coming. Anyways, this initiates the Harrier boss fight. Yes, as in that Harrier that you crawled under to deactivate a bomb on Strut E all that while back. This is pretty much just the Hind D boss fight from Metal Gear Solid 1, except at a quicker pace, and compared to the other boss fights so far, it's pretty good. It's a decent boss fight. It's not the most fun, but at least it's an engaging fight. Snake throws you the Stinger missile, so it's new, it's fresh, it's fast paced, and it's perfect contrast to that peaceful Semtex puzzle that you just finished doing. After this boss fight and all the major plot reveals, we're introduced to Metal Gear Solid 2's, well, not necessarily introduced, but really slammed in the face with Metal Gear Solid 2's most innovative addition to Metal Gear Solid's gameplay loop. Since Shell 2 has already been damaged by bombs and now this entire area has been damaged by both the Harrier and Metal Gear, you have to platform. Now, I feel like this is a really underrated aspect of Metal Gear Solid 2. Jumping from ledges, holding on with a stamina meter that was introduced here, not Snake Eater by the way, continues this game's trend of just putting you in one situation that's completely unique into another situation where you're doing something completely different. From bombs, to disguises, to boss fights with jet planes, to now platforming your way over crumbling struts and platforms. It's really cool. And timing your jumps and avoiding the traps can actually be really stressful and engaging. It's also here that you can find the AK-74 suppressor, which helps differentiate the AK from the M4 in the weapons sandbox, and you have some encounters with enemies. If you get caught, it's pretty much certain death as ciphers will shoot you off the ledges. There's this guy who tries to piss off the edge and you have to try to find your way around that. So in short, you get this neat little pocket of gameplay that doesn't stay long enough to get tiring and really helps just change the game up and keep shit fresh. If anything, I wish that the main story campaign of Metal Gear Solid 2 featured more sections where you had to platform. Anyways, once this platforming is done, all that familiarity from Shell 1 goes out the window because no more Strut F visits, no more going in circles, taking care of bombs, finding disguises. You're in Shell 2 now, a completely different part of the big shell. So here, all the gameplay mechanics for finding different weapons and accomplishing your tasks are going to be different. Right off the bat, you're introduced to the fact that you need a new weapon, the Nikita, to solve a similar puzzle in MGS 1 where you have to disable an electric floor in order to gain access to where the president is. However, like I said, you can't go back to Strut F, and this is where another mechanic from Metal Gear Solid 2 gets its true time to shine. There's a reason why the sneaking suit in Metal Gear Solid 2 looks like a wetsuit. It's because this is a maritime operation and you're gonna have to swim now. You see, because of all the damage that's happened, Shell 2, and the Shell 2 core, is flooded. It's slowly falling apart, so in order to get the Nikita missile that you're gonna need to free the president, you need to go down into the flooded chambers, swim around, and try to find it. Once you do find it, you go back upstairs and there's a little nice throwback to Metal Gear Solid 1. After that, you just need to get the missile, through the vents, to the power generator, and you can get to the president. Once you actually get to the president, he reveals that you need to go find this character called Emma Emmerich, who we'll talk about more, as well as all the other characters, the president included, in part 3. Before he can tell you anything more about her or help you, Ocelot comes in and kills him. Now, you need to go back into those flooded waters and get to Emma Emmerich so you can figure out what exactly is going on and stop the terrorist plot. On the way to Emma Emmerich's room, you have to fight the vampire that we talked about before. Now, out of all of the Dead Cell member, which is the name of the terrorist group, boss fights, this one's probably the best. There's this weird gimmick where if you don't shoot out the lights, Vamp can hypnotize you and lock you into place, making you vulnerable, so you're going to want to shoot the lights out first. But this fight really involves transitioning from your explosives to the M4, back and forth, doing damage, dodging attacks. Again, not the best fight in the Metal Gear Solid series, however, a lot more effort went into this one, making it more than just that one-off light gimmick. It's actually engaging. After this boss fight, you get one more chance to familiarize yourself with the swimming hallways and the flooded areas before you go grab Emma Emmerich. I mentioned the idea of getting familiar with these areas because once you get to Emma Emmerich, she can't swim and she can't hold her breath for nearly as long as you can. So when you're swimming with her, you need to know exactly where those pockets of air are to keep her alive and to get her through there. Once you get past the swimming sections, however, it doesn't end there. There's a few more gimmicks they send your way. Emma's afraid of bugs, so in a chamber filled with sea lice, you need to figure out how to get her past there. You can spray the lice away, you can shoot her with your tranq gun and drag her through it, or you can just grab her by the neck and drag her on through it, forcing her to face her fears. Once you're upstairs, it's the normal kind of stealth puzzle, except now you have Emma with you, so getting caught has dire consequences, making you tackle these different guard patrols in a much more intense and careful way than usual. Afterwards, you head outside, avoid gun ciphers. If you're in combat, you gotta make sure that Emma's tucked away somewhere safe, otherwise if she dies, mission failure. And then you reach Strut L. Strut L, you don't really get a lot of time there. It's the sewage facility. You pass through it, you get to this really long ladder.
What a thrill.
And at that point there, you get into the game's sniper section, which is going to be the last gameplay section that we talk about here today. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but I have a very difficult time talking about these sections now without talking a lot about the story. That's why this sniper section here, I feel, is the last section that isn't so dependent on context to talk about. And every other little bit of gameplay that happens after this section, we'll talk about in part 3, where we go over all the characters, story, and narrative elements that I skipped over in this video. Anyways, I love this sniper section. There's so many games that throw you in a forced sniper section that sucks because you have so many guys that are shooting at you that you can't really take your time to aim. By having Emma be the one the enemies are shooting at, it keeps that tension of having some sort of fail state, but at the same time, nothing's inhibiting you from taking your time and getting those clean shots. It's all about your reflexes, awareness. It's realistic sniping. You have some invisible mines that you need to take out with the thermal goggles. Keep taking that pentazemin to keep your grip steady. Ciphers will fly in. Enemies will come out from behind the barriers. It's very intense, and there's tons of Easter eggs to find if you know exactly when you can take breaks or not. Also, this section is amazing because you get to snipe with Solid Snake. Halfway through, he comes in to help you out, and you can coordinate these multi-layered sniper attacks with him because he will shoot only what shows up within your scope. Meaning if there's multiple enemies, you can keep one of them in your scope but then shoot at a different enemy to work with Snake. So he'll take care of the one that you're not necessarily aiming at but is still in your view, and you could take down another enemy. This adds a lot of depth to this sniper section. I'd argue this is one of the best sniper sections in any game just because it's focused on that, sniping. Not movement, not waiting your turn to fire back. Nah, it's just how fast and how proficient you are with this PSG-1, and it really contextualizes the need for a sniper rifle in this game and justifies its existence. So it's amazing. Alright guys, that's it for this video, which is damn long. I'm gonna go over the story in the next video, and if there's any gameplay elements that I didn't necessarily go over. I will go over that when I talk about extras and VR missions in part 4. Ultimately, I think the reason the plant chapter in Metal Gear Solid 2 is amazing is because it's constantly giving you a variety of gameplay options. It gives you the time to understand the layout of the map, understand the areas, and understand the sandbox as well as the enemies, and then it allows you to really master it as you go on while throwing new things your way without getting stale. It's part of the reason why I think it's so cool. Anyways, I'll see you guys in part 3 of the review where we go over the story and the rest of the game. Look forward to it. This has been Puskin, over and out.